There
Hey,
she is. How you doing?
good. My first live. This is interesting.
It is interesting, and so far, we shouldn't have a 4.5 minute delay of trying to figure out how things work this time. I think we're good to go.
Okay, cool.
I I like your sweatshirt, by the way.
I had to rep the brand today.
Did you get a lot of good gear?
I haven't gotten anything free, but let's just say the discount is very nice.
Okay, okay, good, very good. Let me just tweak here. All right. So hopefully some of our students will join us. That would be cool. I did just shoot out a text to all of our business students to encourage them to hop on if they can. But if not, they'll get to see this on our feed and on IGTV. So thanks for joining us, Christian.
Thanks, no problem.
This is something I wanted to do for a long time. You've been on my list of students to make sure we track down, and it was really nice connecting with you on campus a few months ago. And I think right around then you were maybe the transition was coming, so we figured we'd kind of wait till you settled into a new position, and then we'd have a little more to talk about in terms of your career trajectory and things like that.
Yeah, so honestly, perfect timing.
Good, good. So listen, let's start kind of a little bit at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, how you grew up, and how you found yourself at the University of Miami.
So I was born in Colorado, and then my parents and my brother moved to Memphis, where my parents are from, when I was about 10. So I always tell people like I pretty much grew up in Memphis for most of my life. And then when it came to deciding where to go to college, I honestly still to this day don't know how UM got on my list. And the first time that I stepped on campus was actually for my Hammond interview. And I kind of knew like, oh my gosh, like I have to be at this place even before the interview, even before like I got the acceptance. And so yeah, just when I got the call that I got the Hammond Scholarship, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And it was just that summer before of just like, oh my gosh, like all of us Hammonds are gonna get together and be able to meet. It honestly was one of the best decisions of my life.
Cool, very good. That's nice to hear. Um, so were you business from the beginning, or were you at any point thinking of studying something else in college?
So when I came into I declared my major as international finance and marketing. Took one finance class and then knew that was not for me. And then it was my first accounting class, and I think it was with Professor Levine, I want to say, and I was like, oh my gosh, like accounting is amazing. So I switched my major probably the spring of my sophomore year, which is a little tricky, but I guess we'll get into that a little bit later. That's when I decided to change to accounting.
Okay, yeah, because accounting's a big major. I remember when I used to do a lot of advising, it was one of those majors in the School of Business that would kind of take up all your elective space. It didn't leave a lot of room for other things. So to switch that late might have presented some challenges. And shout out to Professor Levine. Yeah, he's a very popular professor. As long as I've been at I've always heard positive and wonderful things from students about his classes. So it's nice for you to shout him out.
Yeah, one of the best.
So talk a little bit more about like maybe your in-class experience at What were some classes that stood out to you in or outside of the School of Business? What do you remember most as being kind of the most impactful?
So definitely that first accounting class, I will say that's like an introductory to kind of get your feet wet of what accounting is. And then as I kind of transitioned into the upper level accounting courses, obviously they got more challenging, but it was really nice. I liked at a lot of the class sizes were a lot smaller, and a lot of the accounting students, we would take the same exact classes. So it was really nice. I had the same people in my classes, so we would always like study together, ask each other's questions. Um, and that outside of business, I actually minored in French, so I took some French classes as well. And then some like more fun classes. I remember taking like a nutrition class as like a cognate. And so yeah, it was I most of my classes were in business, but it was fun to be able to take other classes outside of the business school. And the business school is so huge, so there's like so many professors. And I will probably have to say one of my favorite classes I took was business law. So it's like getting your mind, to think critically about law and how you write, because we do a lot of writing in classes. So yeah, those are just a few that really stood out to me.
Okay. So what was it about accounting for you that made you see like, yeah, I think this is what I want to study and even what I want to do for a living?
I'd say I'm a pretty analytical person, and accounting, essentially you are making numbers make sense and organizing them. And so I think as someone like me who's very organized and analytical, I think accounting was that course matter that really just stuck with me, and it made sense to me as I was going through my courses.
Mm, okay. So let's talk a little bit about your experience at UM outside the classroom. What were you involved in? How did you spend your time when you weren't crunching numbers?
I know you're smiling because I spent a lot of time with you and the rest of the OAE. I was a student assistant. Honestly, I think I joined spring of my freshman year. And then I also went to UM for grad school. So I also got to work in the OAE as a grad assistant. So I think I was there for like 5 years. So yeah, the OAE pretty much was like my home, just because I loved being able to see their Hammonds, because I was the first person that they would see when they would come in for their appointments. And so it was really cool getting to interact with the upperclassmen. And getting to, I always would say like Hammond weekend was my favorite because that's when the office was the busiest.
Mm.
But it was just so cool being able to like prepare for the new incoming class that was going to come and interview. And then outside of spending so much time in the OAE, I was a P100. And then my senior year, I was actually on the advisory board for the tour guide. So those two things pretty much took up most of my time.
Okay. And how did you like Miami coming from Memphis?
I loved it. It was, I think, knowing a few people before I came into UM was really helpful, because I remember a lot of us Hammonds that got the scholarship, we actually formed a Facebook group. So we messaged each other over the summer. We're like, hey, like, when are you going to get to campus? Like, we should meet up. And just being in such a diverse and colorful city like Miami, at first it was a bit of a culture shock just because I do not speak Spanish, but it was really nice being at such a great university that, prides itself on diversity and just embracing a bunch of different cultures. And I'm a really big foodie. So that's probably the hardest thing that I miss about living in Miami, is like all the wonderful food that I got to eat and just all the cultural experiences I got to have.
Okay, so that actually gives me a good segue. Since you're a foodie, I'm sure you had some pretty good food when you were in Paris, France for a semester studying abroad. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that. How did you decide to go abroad? How did you pick France? And what was it like?
Um, it was pretty easy because my minor was in French. So I knew I wanted to go do the Paris exchange program. The tricky thing about my situation was, as I mentioned before, I had declared my major. I'd switched my major to accounting the spring of my sophomore year, and I was actually going to study abroad in the fall, the next fall. And so I was kind of in a situation where I was a little bit behind on credits, and trying to find courses that would count towards my accounting major was a little bit difficult. So it was kind of that in between of, do I go study abroad, which is something I really want to do, or do I stay here and make sure I'm on track to graduate? Um, Took a leap of faith and jumped and went. And it was honestly one of the hardest things I've done, but one of the best experiences. And I have to shout out my fellow Hammond, Agenia, who studied abroad in London at the same time. So I always tell people, like, she honestly helped make my experience so much better, because the two of us, we were studying abroad at the same time. And Paris was awesome. I actually did a homestay. So I was living with a French family and one other American, and we would do weekly dinners where we would just speak French with our host mother. I would take the metro to campus, or I would take the bus. And I went to the American University of Paris. So it was fun seeing a bunch of other students from not only the United States, but all over the world come together in classes. And I actually took a lot of marketing classes, a couple French literature classes. And even though I didn't get to do like the fun, like, you know, there's a class where you could literally just go to a museum and do like write-ups of like the different art you would see, I would pretty much spend all my free time going to museums or like traveling on the weekends to other places in Europe, because once you get over there, it's like super cheap to say go to Amsterdam or go to Spain or go to London, which I went to a couple of times. So it was one of the best experiences.
Awesome. I see, I don't know if you can see the comments and who's watching, but Agenia just joined us. So what's up,
Yeah,
Agenia?
and just
You,
shout out.
and Alexis, I'm not sure if I know Alexis, but she wants you to come back to Europe,
Yeah,
Christian.
Alexis, Alexis and I work together at Deloitte actually, and she's actually in Belgium
Oh,
doing
cool.
a rotational program. So I told Alexis I have to come back to Europe. I promise I'm coming.
So that's another good segue. Let's get back to sort of how you charted your path professionally. One thing we talk to students a lot about is how they spend their summers, and students work pretty hard to try to find opportunities. So talk a little bit about how you spent your summers in college.
So the first couple summers, I just came back home and I was like a summer camp counselor because I really like kids. And for a time, I kind of wanted to see if maybe I wanted to go into teaching. And then one summer, I actually did a student teaching exchange in Denver because I was also trying to decide, like, do I want to go back home to Denver and do teaching? Kind of realized it's not for me. But I still want to explore more about what accounting is. And as most accounting students will tell you, like public accounting is probably like the first thing that you think of as far as like getting an internship or job opportunity. So I actually interned with Deloitte the summer before my senior year, I want to say, and it was really nice. After that, I got a full-time job offer. So I kind of already knew before I graduated with my master's that I was already going to have a job, which was really nice. So stuck with Deloitte, loved it, met a lot of great people. And I honestly think like any public accounting firm that you go to, you'll learn a lot, you'll be challenged, but you meet so many amazing people. And it, honestly, I would have to say it was a great start to my career is going into public accounting.
So how did you get that internship heading into your senior year? Tell us a little bit about that if you remember.
So I actually went to the Topple Career Fair. So shameless plug for the career fair, you have to go. And the good thing about the business school is, you know, a lot of recruiters will come from these big four accounting firms. The business school will also have their own separate accounting career fairs, which is really nice. So that's one of the great things about is a lot of companies will come to recruit. And I remember that's one of the things a lot of people told me when I was a freshman is like, you probably won't have a hard time getting a job because so many recruiters come to look for talent here at So I went to the accounting fair and I met with one person from Deloitte. And I think, well, I guess backing up to like my freshman year, I went to the career fairs ever since I was a freshman. And, you know, sometimes they'll say like, you know, you're a little too young, or maybe just this isn't what we're looking for, but like keep going and then they'll remember you. And then finally when I went, because I was about to not go. So I was literally pinching myself, like I would not have gotten this job if I did not go to the career fair. And then just going through that whole interview process and then getting the internship and then finally getting that full-time job offer.
Yeah, getting that offer makes that senior year, you know, just a little bit easier.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nice to have that in your pocket. So cool. So shout out to Topple. I believe their career expo was yesterday. So I do hope many of our students made their way over there and found similar opportunities. Talk a little bit about your graduate degree. How did you decide you did the 5-year program, right?
Yeah, so I did the 5 years. So I know in the business school you can do like it's like 4.5 the accelerated program, but because I switched my major so late, I just decided to stay an extra year to get my master's. So I graduate with a master's of science in tax because I took one tax course my senior year, and then I was like, this is kind of interesting. And it's more focused on business law, which I really liked. So that's how I decided to get a master's in tax. And it was really cool. A lot of the people that I did my undergrad courses with, they actually also stayed for the extra year to do the master's program. And again, the classes were small. A lot of the same professors teach both undergrad and graduate level courses. So it was really nice to have some of the same professors that I'd already known and built a relationship with. And then during this time, also, a lot of people started studying for the CPA exam. So I remember at Deloitte, they would try to be like, if you can get your CPA out of the way before you start working, it'll make your life so much easier. For me, that was not the case, but I don't really regret it because I was really able to focus on my graduate level courses and, of course, like my job in the OAE and just like really enjoying being a student before I started working full time.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about your role at Deloitte. What was the actual work like? Once you started working full time, what were some of your responsibilities?
So for me, I focus primarily on partnerships and like flow through entities. I'm trying to get too technical. But basically when you're coming in as a staff, what they say is it's going to be a little bit slow, but like just ask around for work, meet as many people as you can, which is really nice. So I got to, really start those first couple of months, really start building relationships with people. And the nice thing with Deloitte is they have their own like training facility in Texas. So they would send us for different trainings and stuff. So we got to meet other Deloitte professionals from across the country. So again, another great way to build relationships. And then kind of as I started to get my feet wet a little bit and get more comfortable with my job, working a lot with the tax technology as far as like helping file returns, doing a lot of calculations and things of that nature. And I think one of the coolest projects is working with a coworker to try to help automate a process and make it a little bit faster. So yeah, it was kind of a lot to learn. And obviously, like when compliance season would come around, the hours we would obviously be working later, but because we had all built such a strong bond with each other, it made the long nights go by a little bit faster.
Sure. So if you had to sort of summarize for all the prospective accounting students out there, what were a couple of the pros and a couple of the cons maybe of that type of work?
Pros, definitely. Big Four public accounting firms or public accounting firms in general, they are well known. So having that on your resume, it puts you at a certain caliber when other prospective employers are looking at you. The amount of resources that are available as far as training, um, and it just teaches you how to really manage your time. And they always say like take ownership of your career. Obviously coming in, you're kind of like, what does that even mean? Because I don't even know what I'm doing. But the more you work with people, you start to kind of figure out the types of projects and things that you're interested in working on. So for me, I got the opportunity to work with like corporate returns and maybe some smaller like family trust returns, but it was really those partnership and flow through entity returns. I was like, I think this is more interesting and makes a little more sense to me. So this is the type of work that I want to do. So yeah, those would probably be the biggest pros. As far as cons, public accounting, it is difficult. I'm just gonna be honest. Um, and I think for me, I kind of knew early on it wasn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my life, but I saw the benefit of starting my career in public accounting just because there's so many things for you to learn. And it's a really good starting ground for you to get your feet wet as far as like accounting principles and how to be on a team and how to like take ownership of different projects because you'll probably be working on say like 7 clients or so, and so you're trying to really manage your time and really figure out like how do I finish this project when also somebody else wants me to do something for them. So it's really also working on communication because you're having to really just take ownership of your schedule and make sure that at the end of the day the work that you're being given is getting done, but also you don't want to like stretch yourself too thin where you're not really able to give your best in all the projects that you're a part of.
Mm. So talk a little bit about your transition to your current position. How did you find the job? What was the interview process like? And how does it differ? How do the responsibilities differ from your previous role?
Yeah, so Nike was kind of always like a dream of mine, especially like in college. And I had, always looked on their website like, oh, like are they hiring or anything like that? And so I had applied to them a couple times and would always get the generic like, oh, like we decided to go with other candidates. But this time I think again, I kind of always knew public accounting wasn't going to be for me forever. And so I was like, let me just try and see what I can get. So it was actually in October, this past October, and I, again, was just on the website and saw this position. Senior accountant had actually 7 openings. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll have a better chance of at least getting an interview because they have so many positions that need to be filled. And I think I filled out the application on Nike's website on like a Monday. And then that Wednesday, I got an interview basically where you have to record video responses to certain questions. And I think I did absolutely terrible because I was like, you only get like 2 tries to do the interview questions. And I was like, oh my gosh, like once you have one answer and if you change it, like you have to go with the answer. So I submitted my responses and I think it was maybe like 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, I probably bombed this. And then one of the recruiters contacted me like, oh, like we would like to like have you go through like panel interviews. So Nike is doing, they've been doing a really big reorg. So a lot of people have transitioned to other roles internally just because the company is growing, which is awesome. And so with my position, my interview process, I actually did 3 or 4 panel interviews for different teams. So I actually got to do a panel interview with my current director. And it's on the North America team. So I'm responsible for reporting revenue for our US and our Canada sales. And I remember leaving that interview like, I think I really like did really well, but I just don't know how many people they're interviewing because Nike is so competitive. And I was like, okay, like I got the interview, like if nothing else happens, like I am set. Like this is all I need. And it was probably right before Thanksgiving. The recruiter called me back like, hey, like let's just have a chat, a debrief on how you think your interviews went. And I was like, I honestly thought that I did pretty well. But you know, I'm interested to hear your feedback. And she's like, actually, we would like to extend you an offer. So I was like, oh my gosh. I did like a happy dance. And it was funny because during interviews, like even though like they couldn't see what I was wearing, I actually wore my favorite pair of Nikes, which are these Air Jordan Low 1s. And I was like, you know, I'm feeling really good. Like hopefully these shoes, like I had them in my closet for months. And I said, I will only pull them out for a special occasion. And so I wore them on all of my panel interviews. So, hey, you know, I had a little bit of magic help me with my interviews, but no, it's the interview process. It was long, but, you know, I got a really good feel for what Nike is about because they're really about team. And, you know, again, with the whole reorg and the digital transformation, you can really tell that they're really investing a lot in building up their teams. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, congratulations. It's exciting. And you've moved, right? You're out west now.
So I'm not out west yet. I'm actually
Okay.
parents' house in Memphis, but I will be moving there in about 2 weeks. So
Okay.
all my stuff is moved out there. So I'm like, okay, I really got to move now.
Yeah.
But yeah, really looking forward to moving out to Portland.
That's awesome. So, Christian, congratulations. Before we let you go, I'm kind of throwing you a little curveball. I don't know if you've thought about this much since you've left but what kind of advice would you have to, you know, a current college student who's interested in accounting or something in business, any sort of general or even more specific advice for how they, you know, make their next steps and plan for their future?
That's a really good question. I would say really leverage the community at because you never know who you're going to meet. I had the opportunity to meet some of the most creative, intellectual, just interesting people. And I think through that experience of like really building my community and really leveraging all of the knowledge that's available on campus, whether that be from the other students, from professors, from visiting, you know, recruiters or anything like that, I really started to figure out who I wanted to be as a professional outside of and I honestly think that's one of the things I really thought about when I decided to make the move to Nike. It's because I always was around really creative people. Being so big on athletics, I was like, I really enjoy being in the athletic environment. And I knew that's something that was kind of missing. And I was like, I'm really young, so why not at least try to do something that I'm really interested in? And so I would say for any student, like, have lots of conversations. Like, obviously with the pandemic, I know campus life has changed a little bit, but I think some of my best memories are those late night conversations you have with other people, bumping into people in between classes, going to different programming events. Like I know MSA, OAE, different colleges have all these programming events. Just go. Like even if it has nothing to do with your major, like you never know like the connections that you're gonna make, and it'll spark an idea for you to like, try a different class, or even switch a major, or just get involved outside of UM, because Miami itself is such a beautiful city. So I would say like, really embrace Miami and learn as much as you can before you make your next move. So
Awesome. That's great advice. And Christian, you should know that, well, first of all, it makes me happy to hear you say, go to these things, even if it doesn't seem like it connects with what you're doing, because now you're on the other side of that. And this conversation is that same type of exposure that I hope our students have, where they hear a little bit about someone else's journey and they start to see their own path take shape in maybe a way they hadn't expected. So Christian, it's a lot of fun chatting with you as always. It's great to see your big smile on my phone, even if it's not in the OAE anymore.
yeah.
But good luck to you at Nike. Good luck out of Portland, and let's stay in touch.
Oh, for sure. And if you're ever out in the Portland area, you let me know. And obviously when I come back to Miami, I will definitely be visiting the OAE.
Good to hear. And don't forget, I'm a size 12 in Nike, and a large. Large usually works pretty well.
I will see what I can do. I tell people on the sneakers app, I am not like the plug, so I can get exclusive. Like I still take my L's on
Right.
so I can only do so much, but I will keep that in mind.
I understand, Christian. Good to see you. You have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Chris.
All right. Bye-bye.